Well, good evening. I'm Tom Schwank, Vice President of GAIN, and I want to thank you all for coming to our 2014 Candidates Forum. I want to thank all the candidates who are here. Hopefully we'll have a lively evening after 1, 2, and 3 in the mayor's. There's a little break in Edna's room, and then we'll set up for the second, 4, 5, and 6 districts. Say that again. Aren't you glad I'm not a performer? Anyway, I don't want to take any time. George is going to tell you what we're doing. We're thrilled to have George Lee back. I think this is his 3rd time, so thanks, George. Great acoustics in the joint. Hopefully the chairs are comfortable. Thank you. Anybody else have cards? Stick your hand up and I'll grab it.
All right, thank you. Acoustics? Speak English, Tom.
Get out of here.
All right, get out of here. Thank you, pal. All right, now this is evolving. What we're going to do, I'm going to go over the rules such as they are very quickly. We are going to begin with the mayors and their opening statements. Then they will each have the opportunity to ask one of their opponents for mayor or someone on council, anybody here, a question, a direct question. They filter it through me, but nobody gave me questions in advance, so they're going to have to wing it. If they don't, they're going to get a default question that I made up. Now, each candidate will have 90 seconds to do their opening statement. They will have 1 minute for their answers, and they will have 2 minutes for their closing remarks, which is the part where they try to convince you to vote for them. Okay? Leaving already? Oh, thank you. He's a good man. He gave me a question. And not for me, it's for them. All right, so the Grand also asked me to announce their housekeeping rules. No food in the auditorium and no pets. I didn't see any, so it's probably okay. Otherwise, you can bring liquids in here, and so just be mindful of keeping this place clean. Okay, and of course, everybody's favorite, no cell phones. That also applies to candidates. And if anyone's phone goes off, Tom Schwank will not only sell your house, he will move into your neighborhood. These are strictly enforced, not really, but it sounds like fun. All right, then, once we're done with this group, we will start with the mayors. They'll get some questions. We're also going to have a, not show and tell, but show of hands, where we ask a yes, no, or abstain type question. And they simply raise their hand for yes, no, or abstention. We will do the same thing with the councils. Once we're done with the mayors, they may leave because they got to be back for the second portion. Okay? Then we go to the council candidates, and we will do it by district, and as we go through them, they leave, so on and so forth, make their closing statements, and then about 7:45, you may go to Edna's room for refreshments and a cash bar. It better go through the drive-thru because you got to be back real quick for the second portion, which will begin at 8:15. So I had a lot of cool stuff to say, but I got to move on because we have very limited time. So we're going to begin with an opening statement from Elizabeth Beaton. I'm sorry, that was my Lewis Rosen Memorial egg timer going off. You're on the clock. Elizabeth Beaton, opening statement.
Thank you. I've been working to bring fresh air to City Hall, and it's never been harder than under the current administration. That's why I want to be our next mayor. I know how different things could be with wise, strong leadership, and how beautiful and prosperous Galveston could become. I'm committed to reducing our property tax rates and our water rates because City Hall has to do its part to make Galveston affordable. And I'm committed to fixing our streets, sidewalks, parks, and lighting. City Council has appropriated millions of dollars for these projects in the last couple of years, and construction on them will begin this summer. But we have to keep overhead low at City Hall so we can continue to make those improvements. And third, I'm committed to working for a better public housing plan with fewer units on the island and better life outcomes. I believe in hard work, homework, and loyalty to my constituents. My administration will be professional, efficient, transparent, and respectful. Please vote for Elizabeth Beaton for mayor.
Thank you. And now Mr. Jim Yarborough.
George, you look so good I hardly recognize you. I'm Jim Yarborough, and I'd like to be your next mayor. You know, the most common question I get every day is, why do you want to run for mayor? You know, and I understand the little twist that people put on it, but people ought to aspire to be mayor. We can do better, and that's the reason I'm running. To put it in a nutshell, I want to be part of the team that makes Galveston better. You know, I want to get the younger people involved. We need the younger people up here sitting running for these offices. The way we get them involved is appoint them to our boards and commissions, give them the training, give them the exposure to bring that energy and new idea to the table. I'm running because I want to complete the Hurricane Ike programs. Folks, it's been 6 years. It's time to put the bow on the package, put it under the tree, and move on. If we can finish those infrastructure projects from Hurricane Ike, it will go a long way toward improving our neighborhoods with improved streets and curbs, sidewalks, gutter drainage issues, and certainly the streets themselves. You know, I'm running for mayor because I want to bring better jobs to Galveston. We've got a lot of jobs in Galveston. There's tons of people come over here every morning to take one of them. We need better jobs. How do we do that? One way is to work with the Port of Galveston. Work shoulder to shoulder to develop a full plan to develop Pelican Island. Work to get that rail bridge there. And those will create better jobs for our citizens. And finally, I want to provide strong leadership. And I would appreciate your vote come May 10th. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Don Mafford, candidate for mayor.
I'm Don Mafford, and I'm a longtime resident of the city of Galveston. I'm also a longtime member of GAIN. I've worked with the neighborhoods, although I'm a businessman. The reason that I'm running, when I'm asked, is because I want to get our house in order at City Hall. We have serious problems down there. We don't have consensus on council. We have council people going in different directions. We need the leadership at City Hall to bring these council people together and move in a consensus to establish goals and objectives that are going to be productive for the city of Galveston. We also have problems on staff. We don't have a city manager. We have to deal with hiring a qualified city manager for the city of Galveston. Because what council does, once it's effective, it provides the goals and objectives to the city manager, and the city manager needs to carry those goals and objectives out. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to run. I don't need this job. I've looked at the pay scale and it's not that good. But I'm willing to provide the leadership that I have as a successful businessman and a successful military person with a good career, retiring as colonel. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Don Mafford. Now we're going to start back with Mr. Mafford. This is the question he submitted, and it's for Mr. Yarborough. And the question is, you say you were a successful businessman, but according to the state of Texas, you have been in a leadership position which has resulted in Chapter 11 and Chapter 7 bankruptcy of Eagle Broadband and Citizens Bank of Galveston, resulting in recovery by the FDIC of millions of dollars. Does your business record equate to success?
Without a doubt, it does. Without a doubt, it does. You have to know the circumstances of each of those companies. We brought them to a smooth landing with grace and dignity. We worked hard to improve those businesses, and the bottom line is they ultimately didn't make it. I worked for myself for 5 years after I left the banking business and provided contract management and financial consulting to many small businesses in this city. Management is one of my fortes. And I have 16-year track record as your county judge, CEO of the Galveston County, whose budgets and personnel are more than twice the city of Galveston's. We didn't have the cantankerous meetings we have at the City Hall. We didn't have the long meetings. We were a well-managed entity. Our bond ratings were improved 3 times under my tenure as county judge. And so I have a very successful track record and proud of every day that I've spent working and living here in Galveston. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, to continue, Mr. Yarborough, you can choose either one of your opponents to ask a question of, or someone that's running for council.
George, I didn't come prepared. I'd really rather get questions from the audience and listen to what they have to ask versus what I might have to ask, because I know what they'll say. So I really don't have any questions.
Well, then I have to ask the default question for you.
Yes, sir.
What year was the 1900 storm?
Well, you know, I see a couple of Aggies in the back of the room. Maybe they can help me there. I'd say about 1900.
About.
About 1900.
There you go, being specific again. All right, we bring it to you, Elizabeth Beaton. Do you have a question for one of your opponents?
No, I don't.
I gotta do. What's the name of Pelican Island? Boy, this is tough. You people are so shy. All right, then we're going to go to some questions from the audience then. And boy, let me tell you, we got some good ones. I'm proud of you guys. This one is a pretty tough one. We'll start with you, Ms. Beaton. They want to know from all the mayors, and y'all can go right down the line and answer this, name 3 major interest groups who support you.
Well, I believe the residents of Galveston support me because I've always been loyal to them as my constituents. I've worked hard for the constituents of District 3, but they've let their friends know that I am available to solve problems for them at City Hall, and so I've worked for residents all over the island. I believe I'm supported by the people who live and work on Galveston Island, who value our historic heritage and the conservation of our historic resources. I've worked very hard for that as well. So those are constituent groups that support me.
Thank you. Mr. Yarborough.
I guess the first group that supports me is my family, even though my wife was a hard sell. She's come around. Certainly have a number of friends, which is evidenced by you can drive down any street in town and see yard signs all over because we've got a lot of friends we've built in the last 58 years here. And the people of Galveston have been good to me and my family, and they've been generous in this election cycle. And then the third group that's supporting me, I have the endorsements of the Police Association, the Fire Association, the Tavern Association, and the Galveston Association of Realtors.
Thank you. Mr. Maffridge.
Well, I think my wife supports me, although I can't get a commitment out of her. I keep working on that. The business community supports me. I have an endorsement from the Galveston Apartment Association and from the Pro-Business PAC, from the Concerned Taxpayers. I have a cross-section of support from the community, from the neighborhoods, and I look forward to providing leadership for all those groups.
All right, thank you. Boy, I learned something from that one. I'm going to have to look at my wife now as an interest group. I didn't know that. I've only seen total non-interest. That's okay. Who laughed?
If you were married to Carol, you wouldn't already be doing that.
Would I be alive? Thank you very much. All right, this one's going to be a simple show of hands, yes, no, or abstain. Would you have voted to renew the city attorney's contract? Yes? Not everybody at once. Do you understand that one?
Well, are we going to answer collectively?
No, just raise your hands. And everybody, no, this is no talking. This is a simple, raise your hand. Yes, he raised his hand. Yes, he would not, or yes, you would. The question is, would you have voted to renew?
Yes, I would have dismissed the city attorney.
Okay, hand. Yes. Do we see any hands? Yes. They have notes on them, the hands. Okay. No. Anybody vote no?
Well, I am the only one gentleman here who actually did vote on the renewal of the city attorney's contract, and I did not vote to renew that contract. I'm a little uncomfortable discussing personnel issues at a forum like this, but it's a matter of public record how I voted on that issue.
It was suggested by several people that some of the agenda items from the past 2 years be brought up to see how future candidates would vote on them and how candidates that were already there voted on them. How about you, Mr. Yarborough?
At this point, I would abstain. I've never worked with the lady. I only know her by reputation and what other people tell me. And normally I like to work with people and form my own opinion. So not having worked with Ms. Palumbo, I would not have an opinion today, but certainly will form one hopefully over the coming months.
Okay, this is for all three of you, a simple show of hands. Would you have voted for the current property tax rate? And would you vote to keep it the same and not raise taxes? So, did we hear yes? Would you have voted for the tax rate that now stands, which I believe was raised after Ike? Yes, no, abstain. All yes?
No. I would not have voted for the tax rate.
How about y'all?
I wouldn't have voted for the tax rate, but I wouldn't cut it all the way back at one time to pre-Ike rates. One, we've had 6 years with no tax increase, so 6 years of inflation and things have gone on. And two, if you lower that tax rate too much, you're going to fall into the trap of rollback rates and other state laws that come into play next year if you roll it back that much this year. So it needs, if it's going to be lowered, which I think we can lower it, it needs to be done on a laddered basis over the next several years.
Okay, Ms. Beaton?
I did vote to keep the tax rate the same this year. That's because our budget included pulling $1 million out of our fund balance for improvements to our streets. And I thought that was an important enough issue that we should do that. We also have a new charter amendment that requires the city to set aside 8% of our general fund every year for infrastructure improvements, especially streets. And we have just begun setting that money aside. However, we have enough fund balance to reduce our property tax rate. And I would vote in our next budget cycle, which will take place this summer, to reduce our tax rate.
Did I understand the question was yes or no?
Yes, you did. Apparently, I didn't understand it, but that's all right. I thought you were going to ask for more detail. And since
I would like to
everybody's...
say...
Go ahead, you got a minute.
Yeah, what's happened is a commitment was made to the taxpayers right after Hurricane Ike that when the income of the city by way of taxes either equal to or exceeded the 2007 pre-Ike tax base, that there would be a rollback in taxes. The tax rate was increased from 49.4 to 55.4, 6 cents increase. Well, that commitment has not been kept. I can tell you this, that I chair the City Finance Committee. There's a $5 million increase between 2007 and 2014, and they're just picking the pockets of the taxpayer, not giving them a break on that. Now, whether it's incrementally or one time, you know, that's something to be decided, but they need to keep the commitment.
Thank you very much. Here's a good one. Audience person wants to know if each of you can pledge transparency, full transparency, should you be elected. We'll start with you, Mr. Yarborough.
I've been in public office for 20 years, and I've had a saying that goes back to day one: government ought to be in the sunshine. People ought to know what we're doing. When people come in for open records requests, they shouldn't be given the runaround, the 10-day maximums. If we've got it on our desk, make a copy and give it to them. You can test my record at the county. In 16 years, we probably didn't have 20 executive sessions. And those executive sessions were certainly